In this video, we're going to look at typography and how you would get the typography that you need for your Etch website. This is usually handled quite automatically by page builders. You would jump along and go to the headings section, global headings, hopefully, and you would type in the name of the font that you would like to use, and it just appears. It changes out, and all of your headings are suddenly the font that you've chosen. Most likely that's going to be a font that you find from Google Fonts, and this might even be where you paired it up in your design process and all of that. But the process is all quite automatic, and so a lot of people coming from page builders haven't used any custom fonts or locally sourced fonts and uploaded those, so that the process that's required in Etch is probably quite confusing. I haven't done anything like this for, well, I suppose last year I had some custom fonts that I needed to use in Breakdance, and the process was really easy to do. You uploaded the font files and then selected it as normal. But I'm sorry, I do have a cold. So what I thought was that this was actually a bit of a wrestle for me, and that therefore makes it an appropriate video to chuck into the Etch space. Now, there isn't much documentation in Etch's documentation, as far as I could tell anyway, about typography and how to install the fonts and how to go through those different processes. There is some mention of it in the community, which if you get the Etch license, you have access to that community. But again, it's jumping a few steps ahead, and it's not explaining the process of how fonts work, how they're sourced, what some of the issues are with it, and essentially how to get it all on the page. So I just wanted to put this video together to show my learning, also to open up to comments, like if I'm doing it wrong or if there's a better way. I would love to know that, so slam it in the comments, and I'd love to then have a go and do an updated video. That's community learning, isn't it? But I certainly found myself leaning on experience that I've had previous to page builders, but then of course, a lot of people haven't had that even to start with. So certainly think that a video is needing to be done, especially with this not being approached in the documentation, to help those really starting out with the concept. So let's have a look at that quickly. The way that fonts are usually loaded into the site, there are two ways. One of them is from a link in the head section of the site, which is something we don't really deal with as WordPress users. It's all put there automatically, but you would have a link, and it would link straight to Google servers and retrieve the font. So you might say, oh, okay, I would like to have Montserrat, and you would get the appropriate link, and it would go into the head, and that would link out and pull it in to your site. Then you would define it in your CSS for your headings, for example. However, that is a direct breach now of GDPR. At least it was in 2022. There was I can't remember where it was. I think it was a German court case or something, but it created a lot of issues with how fonts are loaded into the sites. And really the way to get around that is that you should use the locally sourced methods for fonts. So what that means is that the font files should be actually within your website files and loaded up from there. It doesn't have to contact Google servers, which then obtains the user's IP address and breaches GDPR. So the way that we really want to do it is to install fonts and source them locally from the website files, and that doesn't require a link and IP user information going anywhere. This is how I've understood it in the past couple of years. What has not been clear to me is how to do that in Etch, how to actually obtain the font, install the font, go through that process, and then reference it in the CSS. So that's what we're going to have a look at now. So the first thing to do is I'll look at the site that I've been constructing for myself. I'm sorry, I do have a cold. And if we have a little peek, we've got Montserrat here. Now, the first thing I would say is that if you're an Etch user, I really think you should be using automatic CSS, because there are so many benefits to that. It sets up all of the initial global settings, stylings, responsive settings, and it offers so much in the way of variables and all of that organization. And so if you are doing that, it's very much like the page builder experience to an extent, where you would click into your automatic CSS, go along to typography, headings, and you can start defining everything as you would like. So for, well, I've got Monster out on there now. If I go to Poppins, it populates with Poppins, which is great. So let's have a look-see. That doesn't like me. Go away. So that is now reading as Poppins. Now I've been a little bit confused, and I haven't yet looked at the automatic CSS documentation to further understand this. So I'll say that now. But what it seems to me is that if there was something that I wanted that was a bit less common, Oswald, I'm pretty sure it's called that. But yeah, there's no change there. Let's have a look at. Yeah, this one. I just thought it was a very square one that we'd be able to see. So Oswald, this automatic CSS is not jumping out and grabbing these files as you might see in a page builder. So there aren't just tons of these within ACSS. That's how it looks to me. Again, I haven't jumped into the documentation here. I just installed a font instead. So the process with ACSS would be to install the font locally, which is correct anyway, and then you would be able to reference it. So let's have a look at the process of that here. So I'm going to close this one down and pop along to the dashboard. Now you can upload this straight into the files if you want, into your website files. I've been using just going through this process: appearance, themes, customize, and I understand that this is actually more the Gutenberg native sort of system, which I haven't used. I've been in breakdowns most of the time, so this is new to me, but I found it. And styles, typography, when I first saw this, I actually thought this was an Etch feature, but Etch works with the native system as much as possible. So anyway, so it seems best to do this. This is how you would install a font that you would like to use. So what we know from this point is that just typing a font into automatic CSS, it didn't just reach out to Google and pull it in the way that page builders do, which is good because we're not breaching GDPR there. It's basically saying if you want it, you've got to install it. This is how we do that: appearance, themes, go into customize, styles, typography, and then we click on here and we can actually install straight from Google Fonts. So we don't have to go and get the files and install them. If you did go and get the files, you would simply upload that here. But I'm going to look for Oswald, and here it is, 6 variants. Using it for headings, so I'll just install those. So fonts were installed successfully, and they are now in the website files. So it's uploads fonts. I think it might just be uploads fonts, and then you find the files in there. So that's all done. Let's go back and go into let's go to the home page and screw up the heading with the Oswald font. So now I go into typography and we've got Poppins there. But if I now type Oswald, you can see that we've got that font showing through. So if you're using Google Fonts, or if you're using custom fonts from like Adobe or anything like that, process is exactly the same, but you need to manually upload that. Now, before I skip away to show you how to do this, if you're not an ACSS user, let's inspect. think I remember this correctly. We should see domain or, well, yeah, data application. These are the fonts, and the domain here. We've got the fonts coming from this website, which is essentially what we want to see. Okay, cool. So that's if we're using automatic CSS. The process is to upload the font files, whether you're installing that straight from Google, and then you can reference them much like you would in a page builder environment. If you're not using ACSS, the process is very different, and we're going to go through that now. As far as I understand it anyway, there might be a much easier way, which has eluded me. So this is a test site I've got for Etch, which is not using ACSS, okay? And so here on the heading, we've got Montserrat, okay? So first of all, it's necessary for us to ensure that in the same way that the font is installed on the site. So going through that same process, typography, you can see that I've got Montserrat there. But it's a little bit different. We don't have ACSS doing all of the work with the variables and applying that to global headings across the body, so across the website. And so this is where we have to get a bit messy in Etch in order to set up this process essentially. So the first thing that we have is the root. Now this is set up in the variables in the style manager, and what you can see here is we've got font heading variable, and it's set to Montserrat. Now I installed a really annoying font just so we can see the change take place, and you do have to write it exactly correctly, and I think that's it. So I'm going to change the heading font here, linked to that font heading. And let's have a look, and you can see that that's a different font now, and it's applying well. Okay, so I've changed that variable in the style manager, but how does that actually apply to the headings? Because this is where we define the variable, but we actually need to look in the style sheet, and we've got a few things in here. We've got HTML, which is where you set the global HTML. It needs to be 100%. Which is equivalent to 16 pixels in most browsers, but it means that people can change it. Then we've got body, and body is where you're setting body text, or you know, I'm talking about text now, but you know, it's where you set global settings for the body environment, but that would include things like the font family and the font size. So these are set to these variables. And then we have things like the headings. Now in this instance, I've got H1 to H4, and it's set to variable font heading. So that is referencing that. I can change this. I think I've got inter as well. I don't recall. Was that going? Yeah, there we are. Cool. Okay, so I can change that, and it's going to alter across the site just as we would in ACSS, you know, going into ACSS and changing it here. The thing to remember is that the process obviously is more manual if you don't have ACSS doing it for you, but you do need to set your variables. You need a style sheet that references those variables and sets all of these global settings. The bit that's confusing a lot of people is that you need to upload the font to the website files. So that's the bit to remember. You can obtain font files from obviously automatically within the system we just went into. It links up to Google Fonts. Oh, sorry about that. It links up to Google Fonts anyway, and installs everything for you. But you can get custom fonts from custom font sites, or Adobe is a popular one, and you would actually upload it here. The process for referencing it after that should be all quite similar and the same. You should have preference for this file, by the way, as far as I understand it. WOFF2 or WOFF2. I don't know if anyone would say WOFF2. Anyway, so that's how I understand fonts and typography so far in Etch, both using ACSS or without. Again, if I've got any of this wrong, I would love to be, corrected in it so I can move forwards. But this is how I've made sense of it so far. And yeah, look forward to any discussion on it moving forward. But right, have a good day, and I'm going to get the Etch out of here. That did make sense. That didn't work, really.